Hi, my name is Mike Dillard, and this is Self-Made Man, the podcast for men who want to leave their mark on the world and create a legacy of honor, integrity, and achievement in every aspect of their lives. I'm glad you're here, and once again, it is time to forge your destiny. So longtime listeners are going to know that a common theme here at Self-Made Man is the topic of scaling. How do you bridge the gap from a solo entrepreneur to the leader of a growing team, which can have a massive impact on your industry and the world? Well, today we're going to hear from my good friend here in Austin, Geoff Woods. And Geoff is an entrepreneur, but he's also being groomed as the eventual CEO of Gary Keller's growing personal development and publishing empire based on the principles of his best-selling book, The One Thing. Now, Gary started Keller Williams Realty in 1983 and has grown it into a billion-dollar empire, which has become the largest realty firm in the United States, eclipsing both Century 21 and ReMax. So how did he manage such a feat? Well, as you're about to hear in today's episode, there is a very specific formula that he has distilled over the past 30 years for building an empire in any industry, and Geoff is here to share it with you as not only a teacher of it, but as a student over the past few years learning this principle and this strategy from Gary himself. This is an episode that you will definitely want to listen to more than once. I already have. So get ready to take some notes, and please help me welcome Geoff Woods. Welcome back, everybody. And today we have a good friend of mine and a fellow Austinite joining us, Mr. Geoff Woods. Geoff, welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, Mike. Thanks so much, man.
Absolutely. So I am super excited about our topic today. You and I met probably about a year ago through Jay Papazan and a bunch of mutual friends here in town. And you are right now in a vice president position over at Keller Williams Real Estate, which is just a mile or two away from my home here in downtown Austin. But essentially, I really look at you, and I think you look at yourself as a mini entrepreneur within the KW empire right now, and what you've been building for Jay and the One Thing and all of that stuff. So if you could give us a kind of a 30-second overview of your background and what you've been doing over there.
Sure. So I was in medical device sales for 5 years, had nothing to do with the One Thing or real estate or anything like that. But I know a lot of people in the audience have been at a point where they knew that they needed to make a change in their life. And for me, it came when a colleague of mine had a stroke when he was 35. And I'm looking up going, okay, I make money every month, but I have to show up to work. I have to sell to make that happen. And I had no passive income. And the next week, my company slashes my income by 40%, which was a huge aha for me that I needed to make a change. And the only thing I knew I could do was change the people I surround myself with mentors and people who were where I wanted to be, which is when you and I first connected, Mike. You were where I wanted to be when it came to entrepreneurship and creating systems that generated cash for you. And I formed enough relationships with guys like you that I was able to launch a podcast called The Mentee, which taught me how to build a list and how to do content and convert that into streams of income. And that created the opportunity to move to Austin to partner with Gary Keller and Jay Papazan to create a company around their book, The One Thing.
Yeah, and it's been awesome. You guys have set up a members area. You're in the process of doing that. You've got a monthly continuity, program up and running over the last year. So you've dove in with 2 feet and really done a lot of awesome stuff, and very much along the lines of what I've done the last 10 years. So it's been really cool to watch you go through that. And we wanted to jump on this podcast together today because I had a chance to go in and spend half a day with yourself and with Jay and with Gary in a little private meeting, which was super awesome. It was such an honor to get that invite. When Gary learned about the hydroponics business and what I was doing there and what my goals were with that, and it really was an opportunity to sit down and have Gary walk me through y'all's empire building process, which was awesome. And that's what we're going to be going over here today for everybody. But it's essentially Gary's processes and methodologies that he's, figured out over the last 10 to 20 years on how you systematically build a billion-dollar company, which is exactly what he has done. And I love the fact that he's broken all of this down and documented this into something that's teachable and coachable, and it just absolutely blew me away. So fortunately, you were up for sharing that with our audience today. This is one of the most valuable pieces of info and portions of content education that I've ever gotten. So I'm super excited to have you and have you walk us through this process.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Mike. And at the core, I think people need to understand as entrepreneurs, we're the type of people that want to run through walls. We just want to get it done. Oftentimes we want to get it done fast. And we also may think that nobody can do it as well as us, which I know for me personally, there's been times in my life where I did not use leverage. I did not delegate things because I thought I could do it better. But Gary Keller says often, no one succeeds alone. That is at the core of building any empire. So for those of you who are listening, if you're the type of person where you're an alpha, you're a driver, you get stuff done, but you struggle with doing and succeeding through others, this will be required of you. It will be a shift. Because truly, you do not free yourself from your business and you do not achieve the extraordinary levels of success that someone like a Gary Keller has enjoyed by succeeding through yourself. The only way to succeed is through others.
Yeah, agreed. And that's something I've observed, watching and studying Richard Branson as well. He's got 300 companies, and at the heart of it, he'll tell you what's the secret to all of it. And he said, attracting and working with extraordinary people. And that's pretty much it. So, awesome, brother. Well, I'm going to really hand this over to you because, y'all teach this as a class over at Keller Williams, and you've really got this down pat. So I'm going to let you dive right in and let's get started.
Yeah, and I'll speak to my experience. I've not taught the class personally, but Gary and Jay have had me playing off of this playbook as I look at the book, The One Thing, and say, how do we turn this into $1 billion empire itself? And the first thing that they ever asked me for, I remember Gary drew, and you saw this, he drew an org chart. And if you draw an org chart with you at the top as the CEO, and then you have 5 people under you. And then he immediately to the right of that drew the exact same thing, you at the top as CEO with 5 people under you, but each of those 5 people had 5 people under them. And each of those 5 people had 5 people under them, to the point where there was 140,000 people. All right. Now, if you imagine the company on the left that has you plus your 6 people, and the company on the right that has you and 140,000 people under you, what's the difference that made the difference between those two companies?
Teachability and replication of the process, I assume.
There's a lot of people will come up with answers, and they're all right. It really boils down to, though, your 5 people, your 5 empire builders. If you are going to be the CEO of your company and you ultimately want to earn the right to step out and be chairman, like Gary has done, you have to have hired the right people under you. That's why in our conversation today, we started talking about no one succeeds alone. This really shattered a lot of limiting beliefs I had and misconceptions around hiring, because you'll often go out looking for a specific person based on what you need today. But Gary has defined a profile of what an empire builder looks like. Someone who is a highly assertive person. Now, you may be thinking, I need an executive assistant. I don't need somebody who's assertive. Incorrect. You're not hiring for an executive assistant today. You're hiring for your future COO. And this is what I'm going through right now, because Mike, before we even pressed record, I said the thing I need right now, I need to hire my EA here in Austin. I need to find that executive assistant, but I'm not looking for somebody who can just be detail-oriented and get my lunch. I'm looking for somebody who at their core is a driver, who could earn the right to become my COO. And that's exactly what Gary and Jay did with me. When they hired me, my position was general manager. Ultimately, I will earn the right to be CEO of the company that we're building. I haven't earned that right yet, but there's no doubt that's the track that I'm going down. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, that's one thing that I've observed too. After spending that afternoon with Gary is, one of the things that we're going to dive into here today. Okay, how do you find your empire builders? And this is a very specific personality profile, and there's a lot of detail around this, and we're actually going to dive into that. But Gary's big thing is really developing talent from within the business. Which I thought was really interesting, because my philosophy or approach at that meeting that I brought up with him was, well, if I'm out to win a world championship, I don't want to go hire, the kid in high school. I want to go hire the dude who won the championship last year. And he didn't agree with that, which I thought was really interesting. So anyway, I don't want to get us sidetracked. We're going to get down into that part earlier, but let's go through the process as you've got it outlined.
Well, I actually think that's a pretty good segue, because when you talk about what does an empire builder look like, understanding what talent looks like really matters. I personally, when I was applying for the job, they told me we are looking for a CEO. We're going to start them as a general manager. I'm going, why are you talking to a guy who's in medical device sales? What are my qualifications? I was very confused. Now that I understand the process, I know there are three types of talent. There is proven talent, meaning they have done the job. They're proven. There's emerging talent, meaning that they're showing promise. They look like they're destined to do really great things in their life, but they haven't done this job yet. Maybe they're 1 step, 2 step, or 3 steps behind, but it could be in their natural line of progression. And then there's unproven talent, meaning they're green. They're coming fresh out of college. They don't have the experience. They look hungry, but you're not sure. They're unproven. You came into the room looking for proven talent, thinking, I want to bring varsity level players onto my team. And that makes a lot of sense. There's a lot less risk in that. Gary's model has always been, I want to find somebody who's around that emerging talent level, because the thing that I can get with them is they don't come with a series of habits. They don't come with this is how we used to do it at such and such corporation. I can mold them into my culture and really train them in my way of thinking and grow them.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And, who am I to question the process here? I am the number one student when it comes to this stuff. So, one of the other parts about this that I remember that was awesome was the Disney example.
I'll never forget the first time I saw this, but Gary has distributed out to all of us a piece of paper, 11 by 17, and on it is all these scribbles. And on it you see create films, you see 16 millimeter films, you see Disneyland, you see comic strips, merchandise, publications, music. And as you're looking at this, Gary goes, look in the bottom left-hand corner. And in it, it says 1957 Walt Disney Productions. Walt Disney in 1957 got on a sheet of paper and imagined, if I could wave the magic wand and I receive no resistance, everything is possible. What could I possibly create? And he put it down on paper. That piece of paper is what we were looking at. And it's what we refer to inside here at KW as the Disney. So finding the right people is one thing, but what informs what your org chart needs to look like? And this is when I first started. They said, I want you to wave the magic wand on yourself. I want you to go and draw your Disney. If you could receive no resistance, if you could accomplish anything, what would you do with this book? What would you do with the one thing? What would you turn it into? And go out 20, 30, 40 years. Most people do not give themselves permission to go out that far. And I would encourage every single person who's listening to this to get in front of a whiteboard on a piece of paper and put yourself in the same situation. I have just waved the magic wand over you. You can accomplish anything you want in your business. What would you create? What would that look like? And put it down on paper, because then you trace it back to say, all right, what do I need to accomplish in 5 years to be on track for that 20, 30, 40-year vision? And that's when it starts to get a little bit more believable. Okay, I need to accomplish X, Y, and Z. And then here's where it really becomes applicable to you. Now you do a business plan for 1 year. And we have a very simple formula for business plans. It's called a 1-3-5. You have one goal. If I could accomplish one goal in this next year to be on track for my 5-year goal, what would that be? And then you break it down even further. It's one goal, then you get just 3 priorities. And this is where it's true to the message of the one thing and focus. If you could only do one thing, what's the one thing you could do such that by doing it would make accomplishing that year's goal easier or unnecessary? Only one. Gun to your head. You only get to do one thing. What would that one thing be? And that becomes your priority number 1. Now, if you were to accomplish that first priority and you earned the right to do something else, what would that second priority be? And then what would the third be? That's your business plan. It's just 3 bullet points. And that was something he walked us through.
Yeah, no, very cool. Totally agreed. And I think you've got to have that vision that is big and long-term to even recruit, the team that you're looking for. Because if you don't have that and you're like, here's what I'm attempting to do. And then that gets done and there's nothing after that for the next 5 to 10 years, it just falls apart. So
Now here's what was interesting, and I remember looking at your face in the room because he wrote it out like, I've got this big goal, I've got priority number 1, I've got priority number 2, I've got priority number 3. But when you turn that piece of paper on its side, all of a sudden those priorities become your org chart. Those become your positions.
Yeah, that was a huge that was a huge light bulb for me in a really big way. So let's walk people through that, right? If you could give an example, you can use your business, you can use my business, whatever it may be.
Yeah, sure. So I'm actually pulling up my business plan. I just presented this to Gary and Jay literally yesterday. When I look out at 2017, I've realized I have three major priorities. The first is to build a tribe of raving fans through world-class content and engagement. If I can only do one thing next year, just one, if I only get to do one thing, if I build a tribe of raving fans by producing world-class content and engagement, then that is a win. I get a gold star. That's an amazing year. The second thing, if I earn the right to, is to focus on our membership platform. Like you did with the society, we don't want to be in the business of selling a $4.97 product every freaking day to our list. That's not the experience that we want. I would rather give people select opportunities throughout the year to come into a community where we can really pour into them and show them how they can live a productive life. And so launching that membership platform would be number two. And then if I earned the right to do a third thing, it would be going to the corporate, because we have multi-billion-dollar companies reaching out to us with interest in bringing the one thing into their corporations. That would be my third thing. Now, here's the example. If I'm the CEO of the company, if I want to earn the right of being the CEO of this company, I don't get to do all these things. My job is to cast the vision for the company and recruit amazing talent. So that content, producing amazing content, that becomes a person. That's their opportunity to build. That membership platform, that's a person. That's their opportunity to build. And that corporate sale, I will not do that. That's someone else's opportunity. So when you do your Disney and you look at all the things that you want to accomplish in your life and you narrow it all the way back down to what you need to accomplish in the upcoming year, and then you break it down into three priorities, if no one succeeds alone, if you want to truly succeed through others, then you have to ask the question, what type of opportunity could I create so that a truly talented individual could step into my world, have everything they could possibly ever want in their world inside of mine?
Yeah, no, I thought it was absolutely brilliant. And when I went through that process that day, I was like, oh, okay. Here's what it means to build the beginning of an organization. Here are the people that, we need to hire. So I don't want to jump the gun on it because I don't have the outline in front of me right now, but the next question becomes, okay, I know who I need to hire now. How do I find them? And what type of people are these? Because again, we're not talking about building a business here. We are talking about building an empire. And there's a difference between the two.
So I want to it first starts really with your mindset. You have a vision. You'll have your Disney, right? How do you sell that? And this is where the idea of creating intrapreneurial opportunities comes about. And I really believe over the next 5 to 10 years, this is going to be a big wave and much more widely spoken of. I don't think it exists a lot today, but it's what Gary created with Keller Williams. He viewed KW as an incubator for everything. And he always asked the question, how can I give myself permission to make my world so big that any person, any talented individual could step into my world, have everything they could possibly ever want in their life, and still remain in my world? Here's why he asks this question. Because think about a time that either you left an organization or someone talented that you know left an organization. Ultimately, it came down to the fact that they woke up one day and could not perceive a way that they could have everything they could possibly want in their life inside that company's world. So at the heart, as an executive, you have to have an abundance mindset, that you are willing to allow your world to get so big that anybody could step in and have everything they could possibly ever want. So when they interview me and they say, how much money do you want to be making? And I say, I want to be, multi-millionaire, even potentially a billionaire. They go, great, go create that opportunity. And we will give ourselves permission to allow our world to get as big as it needs to be so you can have those things.
Yeah, that's awesome. What an insightful question.
Mm-hmm. So first and foremost, you as the leader, you have to give yourself that permission. Okay. And then there's this concept of how do you find these people? I remember he wrote on a piece of paper, he wrote I, and then to the right of it, it was we, to the right, it was they, and then theirs. When I or you do it, you own a job. When we do it together, you still have a job. When they start to do it, that's when you cross the line of freedom. But when it becomes theirs, when they feel like they have a sense of ownership or profits interest, that's when you start building an empire. So how can you look at each of these opportunities, for example, in mine, like the content creation or the membership platform or the business-to-business sale? How can I structure it in a way that someone could feel a sense of ownership by having that role, by making that their business opportunity? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the way that that's framed. I love the way that, I'm listening to the language patterns that you guys have as a part of your nomenclature, if you will, and the fact that you are like, that's somebody else's opportunity. And I've never heard it put exactly in those terms, but it's an unbelievably important way to frame that. So huge.
Yeah. And well, I mean, I'm sitting down with Gary yesterday and I'm for the first time positioning this B2B opportunity. And he looks at me and I very quickly said, that's not me, Gary. That will be somebody else's opportunity. And I'm already recruiting that person. And he nodded his head and said, good, go do that.
Cool.
So there's a reason I've focused all up until this point on really you and your mindset, because it matters. You have to have that big, attractive vision that a talented individual is going to be attracted to. The talent is not looking for a job. They're looking for an opportunity. They're looking for that chance to make their empire. And so you have to cast that first and foremost. Now, how do you find them? So this is where we start talking more about that profile. When you have your org chart, true to the message of the one thing, if you could only hire one person, what's the one person you could hire such that by doing it would make everything else easier or unnecessary? You don't get to go out and scout for 3 positions. You narrow your focus down to 1. And so in my life right now, it's an EA. I know I need to go find that executive assistant, and I'm not looking for somebody who can just get my lunch. I'm looking for somebody who's destined to be a COO. I'm looking for someone who's destined to be an empire builder, but is willing to start where they are currently and work their way up. And one of the first tests is not only in the first 90 days of being employed or contracted, can they perform the tasks and duties, but can they now prove that they can recruit and attract amazing talent? The way that Gary was able to turn Keller Williams from a small local Austin company to the largest real estate empire in the world with 140,000 agents is that he didn't have to hire more than 5 people. He hired an empire builder, and they immediately had to go hire an empire builder. And that empire builder had to go hire an empire builder. And that empire builder had to go hire an empire builder. Gary has looked at the model, he's created a system, and then he steps out. There is a system for this. You go out, you look for the right person, you hire them, you train them in the system, and then they need to demonstrate that they can do it as well.
So let's go into a few more of the key characteristics that you look for in identifying an empire builder, right? Because you specifically, when it comes to an EA, there's thousands of them, right?
Yeah.
So, that characteristic that you said they have to be able and willing to go out and hire as well. What other characteristics do you look for?
I'm looking for somebody who is highly responsive, meaning they want to move fast. Moving slow to them is like nails on a chalkboard. I want somebody who's naturally an impatient person because they will move the ball. I want somebody who is an intense person, meaning in moments of conflict or frustration, they're likely going to show it outwardly. I want to see that person who, when they feel things, they feel them deeply and you know it. And this may be counterintuitive to what a lot of people may think, but again, we're not talking about what you're looking for today. I'm looking for that person who's destined to build an empire. And when you survey those people, they are assertive. They do want to move fast. They do feel emotions intensely, and they do react on them. And I'm looking for somebody who's overall low structure. You tell them, go create this opportunity, and they will run through walls.
Awesome. What else?
That's when, depending on the very specific type of person you're looking for, the personality traits will vary more. But true to the message of the one thing, if you could only pick one, you're looking for drivers. You're looking for that person that's assertive. If you're looking for a CFO, you want somebody who's going to be conservative, but you want a driver. At the end of the day, they just have to have that sense of urgency and that assertiveness in them.
I don't remember this, if we went over it or not, but is there a specific Kolbe profile or Kolbe score that you would associate with a driver?
I'm not familiar with it. On the disc scale, you're looking for somebody who's high D. That's the driver.
Okay. What is your disc score? your profile?
I'm a high D and a high I.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't remember that. I'm going to have to go through that. And we'll put a link if you guys aren't familiar with DISC in the blog post in the show notes for this. I know Tony builds his entire organizations based on DISC, and it's either been DISC or Colby, and I've come from a background where a lot of my colleagues have used Colby, so that's what I'm most used to. But okay, so we've got a driver, we've got someone who moves fast, and ideally, again, what you mentioned is someone who is up and coming, not necessarily already established, because you want them to assimilate into your culture as opposed to them assimilating your team into their culture that they brought to the table, correct?
Exactly. And then once you make that hire, it's about how do you vet them as fast as possible. I've heard a lot of different thought processes around, do you hire slow, fire fast, hire fast, fire slow? Our process, at least internally, for me to get vetted for this opportunity was 5 months long. It was extraordinarily detailed. And then all that chopped up to me earning the right to prove myself over 90 days in 30-day increments. And what I mean by that is once you find that right person, you have to ask the question, if we had to test them in 90 days to see if they could do the job, what would they need to accomplish in 90 days to prove that they're the right person? Now, here's the shift. You do not identify those things. You ask them to present the business plan. And I just went through this because I brought an empire builder on for my podcast, The Mentee. I was presented with a predicament where they said, Gary and Jay said, we want you to be the face of the one thing. I said, great, awesome. But how can I be the face of the one thing and have two things? That's not integrity. And so I realized I needed to apply the empire builder model to my podcast, The Mentee, by hiring somebody to take over the business side and then step out as the mentee and have somebody in my audience take over the show. And so when I found that first person that I wanted to hire to run the business, I said to Evan, I said, you tell me based on what you know, what you're looking for. I hired you to, number one, prove that you can drive revenue. Number two, prove that you can do brand. And number three, that you can systemize the business. So what do you need to accomplish in 90 days to prove to me that you can do the job? And he brought to me his plan on how he wanted to be held accountable. That's extraordinarily important because as drivers, we oftentimes want to tell people what to do. But if it's their idea, then they, number one, have buy-in. And number two, you can hold them accountable to it. Because if I tell Evan what to do, ultimately the buck stops with me. Well, you follow me there?
Yeah. Well, I think what's even more important too is the fact that they can come up with a plan. You know, the fact that they're not like, okay, tell me what to do, and they have to have the creativity and the organizational skills and the strategic, mindset in order to even come up with a game plan.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened when I got brought on board. They said, give me a business plan. I started asking questions that said, we know what we think this company should look like, but it's not about us. This is your opportunity. You go tell us what you want to build. Because if we tell you what to do and it fails, then we're accountable. But if it's your idea and we'll guide you, we'll mentor you along the way. But if it fails, then it's on you. And there's accountability in that relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome stuff. So what would you say is next in the process? What's important for people to know?
I think once you're making that hire, it's just that first 90 days and making sure that Gary has this model, and he got it from the book Exponential Organizations. But it talks about when you look at the companies like the Ubers, the Airbnbs, the Facebooks, these companies that have had exponential growth, and you look at an exponential leader, it's someone that can cast that vision, and then you tie weights around their ankles and you throw them in the deep end and see if they can swim. You're looking right away just to see, can that person swim in the first 90 days? Because if they cannot, they're not your empire builder. And you would be doing them a disservice to steal time out of their life in an opportunity that is not right for them. And so I think it's just a matter of getting them to prove and validate that they can move the ball right away.
What does the day-to-day look like interaction-wise between you and your new potential hire during that 90-day window? Are you meeting once a day, once a week? What does that look like?
On Mondays, we have what we call a 411, where they bring to me a document that shows these are my goals for the year. This is what I need to accomplish this month to be on track for this year, and this is what I need to accomplish this week to be on track for this month. They present that to me. I then this is a coaching and mentoring conversation about, hey, have you considered this? Is this what works? But ultimately, it's their decision on what they're going to do. And then on Friday, we come back together and say, great, how did it go? How's your knowledge? Is there anything that you feel like you're lacking in terms of knowledge to be successful? How's your attitude? Are you demotivated? Are you inspired? Anything we need to talk about? Are there any skills that you need to develop? Anything I need to do to support you? And how are your habits? When you look at the things that you do naturally, are you set up for success based on who you are waking up in the morning? Do we need to focus on developing the right habits for you?
Awesome. Love it. What other pieces of this puzzle have we not covered yet?
There's building a pro forma and benchmark and trending. We can get into all that stuff, but at the end of the day, I think for people to walk away from this, the big goal is for you to take action and get value from this. I think if you can recognize the fact that if you truly want to build an empire, it starts by making sure that you're recruiting empire builders under you. And this is, now that I've been going through this for about a year, it's really easy to go out and start looking for the right person and to have somebody show up who's definitely a talented individual, but in your heart, they're not an empire builder. Just know that every single time you bring someone onto your team that is not an empire builder, you've just lost a leg to stand on. Because the ultimate goal is that one day you can look up and out of those 5 who report to you, one of them gets to replace you as CEO so that you can now just be chairman of the board and the business thrives with or without you. But if you violate the process, you will be forever tied to the business.
Yeah, no, it's that's the methodology, and I'm really glad that you shared that book that I just wrote down. I'm going to be buying as soon as we finish up here today. Exponential Organizations. Are there any others that are really must-haves?
Books?
Mm-hmm. Obviously the one thing, but beyond that. Yeah.
Gary has recommended a few to me. Exponential Organizations was one of them. He recommended the membership economy because at the core of all business, membership is the future, and you understand this, Mike. He also recommended modern monopolies because when you look at, again, those Ubers, those Airbnbs, the Facebooks, the monopolies of today are all platforms. So right off the bat, he said, here you go, kid. Here's the one thing. Best-selling book. Go have fun. But how are you going to turn this into a platform that we own and control? And that's when ultimately you and I will have a separate conversation on this, Mike. It's how do we build that platform?
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I'm going to be picking up all 3 of those. And another question just popped up in my head, right? So people have their priorities that they need to get taken care of. They've identified the people that they need to hire to pursue those. If they're just getting started, just tell me how you would do this. How would you actually go about hiring that person, even starting from the job description? Is that job description something that you are writing? Is that something that you are posting and circulating out on, Monster, whatever it may be? What does that actually look like?
When they shared their definition of a job description, it made my head spin a little bit. And Jay asked me this question. He said, okay, what are the 2 to 3 things your executive assistant will have to be able to do exceptionally well? Otherwise, they get fired.
Okay.
That made me pause because it's not, what are the things you'd like them to do? No. What are the 2 to 3 things they must be able to do exceptionally well? Otherwise, they get fired. That's a whole nother way of looking at it because now it's no longer a negotiable characteristic or skill set. Mm. They must have those things. That's when you get to now start going out and talking to people about it. When I'm saying, hey, I'm looking for an executive assistant. I'm looking for somebody who's extraordinarily driven. They are destined to build an empire, and they have an unprecedented level of detail. Do you know anybody in Austin who fits that role? And that's when you can start recruiting and leveraging 6 degrees of separation to tap into those people.
So do you put in there your vision for your empire, right? The Disney map.
That's a conversation, and I'm going through this right now because I'm about to make my first hire for this business. Whether or not the full, there's a big vision that goes out there, I'm sure somebody in our HR will craft that for me. But that's a conversation that I'm going to have with them one-on-one because I really want to understand first and foremost, if I can wave the magic wand for them, what does their life look like in 5 years? What does an amazing life look like to them, both professionally, financially, and personally? And once I understand that, then I can really share with them the vision and show them how that vision may or may not help them achieve their dreams.
Interesting. So I'm going through this process right now for Self-Made Man. So my big priority for this next year is to find essentially a producer or someone who takes ownership of the entire content production process, from the podcast, finding the guests for that, booking those people, the networking side, but also from a video standpoint, where one of my big priorities for this is to start to formally produce, awesome lessons on a monthly basis that are not Mike running around the country on a plane and filming lessons with individuals, but much more of an in-studio structured process. And so I need to find someone who can take ownership of that, because I can't do it, right? And so where I'm starting right now is to put together, finished writing a script, 1 to 2 pages long. It's going to be, 2 to 3 minutes on here's what we're building, here's the vision, here's why we're doing it, here's the problem we're solving, here's how we're making the world a better place, and here's why we need, your help in this process. And then that will always be at the forefront of the actual job description that we're looking to fill afterward. I don't know if there's, if that's correct, if that's the good way to go about it or not go about it. For me, it was making sure that we're attracting people who are first and foremost aligned with the mission of the business, since that's the most critical piece. And then, okay, great, we'll dive into the details of your history and whether or not you're right for the position, after that. So anyway, I don't know if you have any thoughts or feedback about that.
I would have to, I've got our hiring process is a 200-page binder. And I know there's a job description formula in there. I just frankly haven't had to do it. So I can look at it and I can get it over to you, and we can make sure that you get to see that.
Yeah, cool. So that's where I'm starting. If people are wondering how I'm going about this process, and I'm going by the seat of my pants here, but, we'll see how it goes. But the next question is, once we've actually got that video up and the job description up, it's like, okay, now how do we get this in front of the right people? And obviously I'll be sending it out to the audience. I'll be telling you guys where you can go if you happen to be the right person or know somebody who could be a good fit. And it's within our audience and ecosystem, that would be great. But, if not, what's the next step? Where is it a LinkedIn advertising campaign?
Sure.
So it's interesting. It's been an interesting puzzle to figure out.
I know we post when we're looking for talent. I know it goes on all the job boards and we do the big campaign behind that. But when we look at the most talented individuals that have ever been brought into the organization, it was through relationship, because talent hangs out with talent. And my partner Jay recognized a few years ago, he's a very strong introvert, but he knew that for the many businesses that he owns, that he needed to become a magnet for talent. And he applied the focusing question of the book: what's the one thing I can do such that by doing it will make everything else easier or unnecessary? And the one thing he could do was just have coffee every Wednesday morning with someone who was considered talent. And so he held his executive assistant accountable to booking somebody to have coffee with Jay. And Jay always just said, hey, do you know anybody else here locally who you consider to be talent? I have no ask. I just want to get into relationship with talent. And when he looks at probably the last 5 to 7 positions, they were all filled through his network because of that one activity. And that's been the same thing for me. I am a super connector. That's who I am at heart. Every single time I have needed to look for somebody to bring people through our process, it's been referral through friends, just because I've been in relationship with talent for several years now.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the challenges of being an entrepreneur and being in an ecosystem where all of your friends are entrepreneurs, you don't want to hire an entrepreneur. And yet that's all of the people within my network. So
I'll play devil's advocate there.
Yeah, well, that's why I brought it up, right? So,
and this is where I say in the next 5 to 10 years, I think this word intrapreneur will become much more mainstream. The narrative today around entrepreneurship is very, very slanted. People think they have to go out and be an entrepreneur, be a number one to have everything that they could possibly ever want in their world. The truth is, if you or I were employee number 17 at Facebook, we'd be very freaking happy right now.
Sure, yeah.
The challenge is you look at an entrepreneur, you want to go out and build an empire. You are a driver. You are an empire builder. But could you get there faster by doing it by yourself? Or could you get there faster if you were able to step into an ecosystem where that person spearheading it, the visionary, was a billionaire and had an abundance mindset? Which way would you get there faster? For me, I had my opportunity I was going to turn the mentee into a big brand and do it on my own, or I had the opportunity to step into Gary Keller's ecosystem and leverage his playbooks.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. You've definitely, made the right decision. And how old were you when you started there?
29.
Yeah. So
30.
Yeah. Perfect, perfect spot in time. And, I did something similar, not nearly as of an awesome opportunity, but in my early 20s, I would go out and get jobs with one specific goal, which was to take away knowledge or skill set from that job that would serve me in ultimately building my business. And so, the interesting part from an entrepreneur's perspective is, I've partnered in my last two businesses with someone from my ecosystem, a fellow entrepreneur. And, real entrepreneurs, I would have to say, have an issue with authority and, sharing a vision, right? Because I think the most critical piece of being an entrepreneur is you have this vision that you are bound and determined to do anything to bring to life. And the moment somebody else starts to participate in that and put their input on it, it then changes it. And at least that's how I felt about it. And so, I've always gone back and said there's a reason there's only one captain on a boat. Period, ever. There is one captain, and then there is the supporting roles underneath that captain. But if there's two captains and they are both bound and determined to fulfill their vision of how they need to steer that boat, the boat ends up going nowhere and just goes in circles, right? So that's been interesting. It's everybody within my network, unbelievably talented people. Let's just use Jason, Jason who has his Facebook ad agency that does all of my marketing and advertising. I would love to have Jason and his team as a part of my team on a permanent basis, but it's just not going to work out because Jason has his own vision that he wants to build, right? So it's been an interesting piece of the puzzle.
Well, and I think that's when we come back to the types of talent, that proven, emerging, and unproven. You're surrounded by a large network of very proven entrepreneurs. And like I said, the one downfall with proven talent is they come with a series of habits of this is how we used to do it, or in this case, it applies to their vision.
Right.
This is the vision that I'm going down. But if you could all of a sudden get into relationship with those emerging entrepreneurs who know they're destined to build something, they're already demonstrating the progress, but they're not sure what the end result is. And that's what I said when I get on the phone with these people. I first and foremost ask them, I am your fairy godmother, and I just wove the magic wand over you, and in 5 years, everything you could possibly ever want comes true. What happened? I want to know what matters to them. I'm listening to hear if their values are aligned with mine. Like you said, when you're doing a job posting, the mission is the most important thing. Are they passionate about these things? Because that matters. It's everything. And if so, I then start sharing my vision with them about what I want to build, and I ask them how they could see themselves possibly fitting into that. And you start that conversation. The other thing is Gary is a very driven man, and his standards and the bar that he sets for quality is astronomically high. At the same time, he has always done an amazing job of working on himself so that when he brings leaders into the organization, he allows them to do what they want to do and the free reign. And he mentors and he coaches and he guides them and he directs them. But he's had to work on himself so that he can give himself permission to allow his leaders to do what they want to do. That's an extraordinary level of maturity, which when you're an alpha, there's ego at play. But how do you check it?
Yeah, no, agreed. I've always said that the most secure and powerful alpha leaders, if you will, are the ones who are typically the quietest and the most laid back, who tend to just observe because they're not threatened by anyone taking action or trying to accomplish a mission or achieve a goal or whatever it may be. So yeah, I could absolutely see that. Well, brother, this has been awesome. This has been super educational. It's one of the interviews that I'm definitely going to go back and listen to a second time and take some notes, and this is just absolutely priceless stuff. So thanks for coming on and sharing your words of wisdom and the lessons that you're bringing over here from KW. And man, this has been great. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, guys, this was our our awesome interview with Mr. Geoff Woods. Geoff, where can people go connect with you and keep up with you?
We just launched the One Thing podcast, where my whole goal there is to document my journey to turning our book, The One Thing, a quality product, into a really thriving empire. And so you can follow the journey there, but I'll give you my email, jeff@theonething.com. That's with the number one, jeff@theonething.com. You can email me if you have questions. I really, truly love to engage with people. That's who I am at my core. So you can follow me there, and then at The One Thing Book on Snapchat.
And also, Geoff is spelled Geoff.
That is correct. Although I have both
okay.
G and J at theonething.com.
Okay, that's smart, because I was wondering why you weren't doing that. I was like, wait a minute, this is gonna go completely wrong for a lot of people. So, but you have circumvented that problem already. But awesome, brother. Well, it's great to catch up again. Looking forward to seeing you soon. Thanks so much for joining us here today, and everybody out there listening, thank you so much for your support. This has been an absolutely amazing year. I love the feedback and the comments. I read them all. If you learned something from the show, which I'm sure that you did, Geoff and I would both love to read your comments on the Facebook page. So go to mikediller.com/blog to find this post and let us know your thoughts. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.